All right, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Hey Guys. Hi, we're still working in Onshape. We're making that column. If you remember last time, we made the column base and we talked about design intent. We talked about the fact that we used a center point rectangle to locate our rectangle so that it's equidistant or surrounded by or surrounding the origin point. And as we go up, if we project a line up from the origin point, we're going to see that everything kind of revolves around that line. Everything's kind of equidistant from it. So that is part of what we call design intent. The other thing about design intent is that we lock in things in a particular way, or we build things in a particular way so that we can go back later if we need to. And oftentimes we need to go back and change things, change sizes. So I want this column, no matter what I do to it, to always be located so that it's centered around the origin point, or a line projected up from the origin point. So I could change this base to not be 28 by 28, but the origin would still be right in the middle of the base, right? So I could make it so that it's 100 millimeters long one way, but still only 28. But the origin point is always in the center because I used a center point rectangle. Does that make sense? I think it does. All right, so what do we do next? All right, so I know that I have a round column coming, or cylinder, coming off of the top of this base that I've made. So every time we start a new three-dimensional object, whether it be completely for brand new or if I'm adding on another part, which is what I'm about to do, I always have to start with a sketch. So everything in CAD stems from a sketch. So I go to my sketch tool, click create a new sketch, and now it wants a sketch plane again. This time my sketch plane is actually going to be the top of the box. So we can always sketch on either a plane or a flat surface. Can't sketch on a round surface, but I can sketch on a flat surface. We'll get into later on about how to make new planes that don't already exist. But for now, we're just going to sketch on top of this plane, this box right now. And you can see that what's happened, you can see this rectangle, it's created a new plane. So I don't have to be right on top of this box. This is just to show you that it exists. This plane goes infinitely in all directions, or well, in two-dimensional space, in north, south, east, west. It goes in all directions. I don't have to be right on top of the box, and we'll talk about that actually when we're making this part. All right, so now that I'm in sketch mode and I've selected my plane, I'm going to come up here, and this time I'm going to grab the center point circle. I know that I want this to be, the center of the circle to be right on the origin point. So there's my design intent. There's that origin point. I'm going to click once and then drag out. Now I'm not going to worry about how big I'm going to make it yet. I'm just going to click again to set my circle, right? Now, I still have the circle tool. My way of letting go of a tool is that I right-click and then I click Escape Circle. You could also just hit this Escape key on your keyboard, and I'm pretty sure if you just went back up and clicked that tool again, that would escape it. All right, so I need to dimension that. See how it's blue? The origin point is black because it's anchored to the middle, but the circle itself is blue. Just like with our base sketch, we can grab this and stretch it out and change its size because it doesn't have a dimension. It doesn't move off the center point, but it doesn't have a dimension. So let's add a dimension. So once I have the dimension tool clicked, all I have to do is click somewhere on the outside of the circle and drag away. And I can see the diameter symbol, which is that certain, like 0 with the line through it. And if I click again, I can type in my dimension. So the dimension for this circle is going to be 16. I'm going to hit the return key, and now I can see that my circle is black and it's 16 millimeters. Now I still have the dimension key tool, so I want to be careful that I don't click anywhere else, or it's going to start trying to add a dimension. But I can just go up right now and hit the extrude button, right? It's going to do just like we did before, where it's going to highlight what I just made. Not going to highlight anything else. It's going to be automatic. Now I need to go down and check and make sure it's not on new. Sometimes it will go to new. I don't understand why it does that, but this time it knew that I was adding. So I clicked on add, or I made sure it was on add. It's got my face as a sketch too, that's right. But this time, instead of 25 millimeters, my depth is going to be 70 millimeters, right? So if I click return, that's going to bounce that up to 70 millimeters, hit the green check, and look, now I hit my isometric view. I've got the beginnings of my column. All right, let's go on and finish this out. So what's the next thing I need to do? I need to put the top of this column on. It's basically the same thing as I've got on the bottom, but it needs to be located up here. This is where I'm going to show you how. So I'm going to hit sketch. My sketch plane is the top of this cylinder, and you can see that it projected that out. But watch. I'm going to click in the center, but my rectangle is way out here. It's off the top of that column. It's off the top of that cylinder. That's because I can draw anywhere that is the plane that the top of this cylinder is part of. All right, so what am I going to do? I'm going to go back. I'm going to grab, I don't want the corner rectangle. I want that center point rectangle again. Why? Because I know where the center point is. Now, notice some things as I move around here. As I go over the center, it's giving me a concentric. That means, my rectangle is going to be concentric with the circle that I've already made, right? If I start coming out sideways to it, you see that little minus sign? Well, that's a horizontal constraint. That means that the center point of my center point rectangle would be horizontal to the center point of that circle in the middle. I don't want that. If I come down here, look, I get a vertical constraint. If I come over here on the side, I get a coincidence constraint. I want this center point rectangle right in the middle. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to drag this out. Now, I want to make this, I do want to make this exactly the same as the one before, but I'm not going to try to draw it that way to begin with. I'm going to dimension it to get it to be exactly the same. So I've just made a random rectangle. Now let's go ahead and throw some dimensions in there. So we're going to make this one, what was that again? 28. So 28 this way. Hit the tab key. Uh-oh, doesn't fit my thing. Let me hit the F key. Oh, nope, not what I wanted. Get rid of that. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to dimension this top line, 28, and then hit the return key. And now look, everything's is locked in just the way I wanted it. So I didn't try to draw it so that it was the same. I just drew it, and then I dimensioned it to be the same. So one more time, I'm not going to hit the green check on the sketch. I'm just going to go straight to the extrude. Let's go ahead and put it in a view where I can see it change. So I can see that it's automatically made at 25 millimeters. I don't want it 25 millimeters. I double check to make sure it's on add because I want it to add. Going to change that to 8. Hit the green check. And man, I'm almost done. All right, one more thing to do. This column has a hole that runs right down through the center of it. So what do I need to do? Well, this is going to be a new tool that new trick with the tool that you haven't done before. So once again, everything we do in Onshape, everything we do in any CAD starts with the sketch. We're going to sketch right on that top of that box, on top of the column top, and we want a hole. We want a round hole. So we're going to go ahead and grab our center point circle again. We're going to lock that in. Look at that. There's that coincidence constraint. And click on that. We're going to drag out a circle. We're not going to worry about how big we're going to make the circle just yet. Just going to make the circle. All right, what's the circle need now? It's blue. Needs to be dimensioned. Let's grab our dimension tool. I'm going to click on that outer circle. And we're going to change this to 8. And hit the return key. All right, so now I've got a center point circle right in the middle of my column, top, and I need that to become a hole that runs through the whole part. Now, if I added up my 8 millimeters, 8 millimeters, and 70 millimeters, that's 86 millimeters, right? So if I go to extrude, look at what it wants to do. It wants to add right away. We want it to remove. So we're going to use a new part of the extrude tool. So we've used new, used add, and now we're going to do remove. We're going to use this to kind of cut a hole, right? Right now, it's cutting a hole that's only 25 millimeters deep. Now, I could type in 86, but I know that I always want that hole to go all the way through the column. I might have to come back in here later sometime and make that column taller. It might be that I messed up and I needed it to be 75, or I didn't know that I needed it to be 75. It's not even a mistake. I just didn't know yet until I try it out. Or maybe 70 millimeters is fine for this one, but I also need some that are 100 millimeters tall for what I'm making. Well, I could go back in and alter that extrude when we did this cylinder to make it that tall, but then I'd have to go back in if I just typed in 86 millimeters and make that hole go through further. So this time, instead of doing an exact dimension, I'm going to change from blind to through all. So I think I mentioned that before, that most of the time we use through all on our removes. So now if I orbit around here, you can see that that hole goes all the way through my column, right? All right, guys, click that green check. You've got your column. You've got your column with your hole. Let's do one or two more. So good job. You've created that. The next video, we're going to talk about how we can make this a certain material, and we can check to make sure that we made it right. All right. Thanks for watching, you guys.